Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my podcast. This is Lulu with Utter Randomness, and we are doing part 2 of our currently reading series. We are checking out Christopher Paolini's Eragon, and it was April's book of the month. I am still going with the book of, Eragon being the book of the month. However, however, I have a very, very bad feeling that this is going to be more than just a month as seen, because the last time I did this, I think, was the last podcast, I think, for currently reading, I think, was on the 12th of April. Uh-oh. So, like I said, I think I said in the first podcast, this is going to be multiple parts, and I'm still going through Eragon. I have already have book 2 already, just as a prep, which is called Eldest. There are 4 books in this series, which is Eragon, Eldest. I don't remember now. But I think there's 4 books in this series. I've got the first 2, so yay! But if you haven't checked out the first part of currently reading, that's out already. It's called Eragon Part 1 currently reading. Please go check that out before continuing. Otherwise, spoilers. Previously, we left off with Eragon, our main protagonist, and Garrow, Eragon's uncle, speaking with the traitor Murloc, who not only informed him that the stone Eragon found in the spine was hollow, but the likelihood of it being created by magic was super high. We also heard the story of King Galbatorix starting his life as a fresh out of training dragon rider, to him stealing the throne and ruling the Brooding Empire for years from the village's storyteller Braum, which is actually a story that could get him killed. So Eragon returns home that evening and decides to test the stone. He bangs on it with a hammer, and it produces a hollow yet really pure sounding sound, like sort of like a bell ringing. As he does this, he realizes that nothing he does damages the stone's surface. It remains pristine, not even a chip. Nothing dents its sapphire surfaces. However, the stone does seemingly produce a squeak. Brushing the sound off, he thought it was a mouse. He lives on a farm, so yeah. He wonders if he was meant to have this stone because of its mysterious and almost magical background. Thinking heavily on this, he decides to go to bed. The squeaking is back, but this time louder. Definitely not a mouse. Groping blindly in the dark, he realizes that the stone is the source of the sound. He attempts to go back to sleep, but is woken a short while later because now the stone is physically moving, like rocking back and forth on his shelf. Tired of the misfortune and headaches that the stone has brought to him, he gets up with the intention of burying this nuisance of a stone, but before he can do anything, the stone rolls off the shelf and cracks open against the floor. As pieces of stone fall away, Eragon realizes what he's looking at, that the stone was not, in fact, a stone, but an egg. Now he's staring at something seemingly impossible, a baby dragon. Not only is this newborn dragon the length of Eragon's forearm, which, if you don't know how, I actually ended up looking this up. It's approximately, like a standard forearm is approximately 20 to 30 and a half centimeters, or 7 to 12 inches. That's a pretty long dragon. But it's also the exact same color that the stone was, which was a sapphire color. The dragon starts exploring its surroundings a bit, bumping into furniture and the like. Eragon decides to touch the dragon. Not what my first instinct would be, to touch a dragon. And receives a shock that stuns him and travels up his arm. But something interesting happens too when he receives that shock. Not just, from this shock when he touches this dragon, but it also felt like something brushed against his consciousness, his mind. When he recovers from this, a shiny silver oval is now on the palm of his hand, and when he touches the dragon for a second time, once again, not my first instinct, he doesn't get shocked this time. He feeds the hungry dragon. After eating, the dragon does the cutest thing and curls up onto Eragon, and he has thoughts about becoming a dragon rider. He wants now to pursue this, but he understands the risk. He could become powerful and even famous. However, he knew that the Empire would track him down to the end of Alaglacia and even torture and kill his family. And that's probably not even the worst of what would happen to his family or him. He decides that he's going to keep the dragon, and now he has to figure out how to find a way to tell Garrow, his uncle, about it. So the next morning, Eragon wakes up, takes the dragon to the edge of the forest with the intention of rehoming it. Can't exactly keep a dragon a secret from the people you're living with now, can you? After making sure the dragon's secured, fed, and understands that it has to stay put in its new makeshift tent, he used a mental connection that he has with this dragon. Like, what? He returns home to the farm. When he's able to return to the dragon that evening, he finds that it had stayed in place and has even managed to hunt for itself, which is too bad for some local birds. Eragon gives the dragon a tour of its new home in the forest, talking the entire time. Like earlier, when Eragon told the dragon to remain in the forest, he's pretty positive that somehow the dragon can understand him. He's a little worried about leaving the dragon by itself overnight, only to have that worry mean little when it comes back to see the dragon fine and happy to see him. In the first week, the dragon nearly doubles in size, so now it's like 24 inches long, and Eragon has to build a new shelter for it. It doesn't take long for it to even outgrow that. Eragon allows the dragon to roam, knowing that the small wildlife and game around the tent wouldn't be enough to sustain it. However, he's very careful to warn the dragon about people who may venture into the forest with the same mental connection as earlier. As the dragon grows and ages, that connection becomes stronger and stronger. Eragon starts to worry that as the dragon becomes larger, that the size of it dwelling in the forest becomes more and more evident, such as large claw prints and dung piles being left everywhere. It's kind of hard to hide. He's also worried about its growth rate. More specifically, when do dragons hit certain milestones, like breathing fire? As well as how he was going to tell Garrow and Rowan, which Rowan is Eragon's cousin, about this dragon. Eragon ends up going to the village and speaking with Braum about the dragons and their riders. So we don't know much about Braum at the beginning of the beginning of the story of Eragon. So the only thing we know is that he moved to Carvajal nearly 15 years ago, and he became the local storyteller when he moved in. So that's literally all we know about Braum at this point. So Eragon arrives at Braum's pretty much unannounced and unfazed. Braum invites Eragon in. After sitting, Eragon asks about the significance of the dragon riders and their dragons. Braum calls the dragons the true inhabitants of Alagacia, and they were there long before the arrival of the elves. Now, Eragon wants to know more about the elves. He's very curious about the world Braum is telling him. Braum is obviously annoyed at Eragon's consistent interruptions, but answers nonetheless, tells Eragon that the elves arrived in Alagacia in silver boats from their home called Alalia. Braum tells Eragon that the dragons are a very powerful race, both magically and physically. And one of the elves that arrived hunted a dragon for sport. Enraged, the dragons began hunting the elves. A war broke out between the elves and the dragons until one day an elf named Eragon found a dragon egg. Our Eragon, the one that this book is centered around, is named after the founder and the first dragon rider. So the first dragon rider, Eragon, believed that raising a dragon would foster a friendship and end the war between them and the dragons. When the dragon became older, his name became Bidam. Eragon and Bidam were able to forge a treaty and effectively end the war. The creation of the dragon riders was a way to maintain a peaceful relationship between the two species. However, they were moved to Vorengard, and there they grew to be a powerful force that the story tells us about, the story that Braum spoke about earlier. Now, Eragon is far from being out of questions, and Braum answers various questions about the dragons for him. Size, they can get pretty massive. Growth, they mature and breathe fire at about 6 months old. Age expectancy, they are immortal as long as their rider doesn't die, and according to Braum, they cannot listen to thoughts. Like, huh? After the barrage of questions, Braum starts becoming suspicious. So Eragon skirts around the questions Braum starts asking, such as where did he hear this information. Eragon tells him that a traitor that he doesn't remember his name to, he heard him speaking about these dragon riders and the dragons. Eragon asks about the riders next. Apparently, they can live long lives, have strong bodies and minds, and they can develop pointy ears. Not as pointy as a true-born elf, especially if their riders are human. Eragon asks about names for dragons, and Brom notes some famous ones, including Saphira. Eragon thanks Brom for his time and leaves in a hurry because he doesn't want Brom asking any more questions. As Eragon is heading home with his cousin Roran, he finds out that Roran received a job offer with a miller. Eragon is upset to hear that Roran has every intention of taking the job because he wishes to have a stable life before hopefully proposing to Katrina, Sloane's daughter, which, remember, Sloane is the local butcher. And obviously he needs some money to do that. While this makes sense to Eragon, he is still not happy about it, and he thinks that Garrow won't take it well either. Eragon confides in the dragon and finds that it's a good listener. At this time, he decides that the dragon needs a name. You can't keep calling it the dragon forever. He lists off the name that Brom gave him, but none of them seem to suit the dragon until, ding ding ding, Eragon really realizes that the dragon is a she. All the names that Brom had given him were all male names, and the only she name that Brom gave her was Saphira, and it ended up fitting the dragon, so the dragon became Saphira. The dragon. I mean, That evening, Roran lets Garrow know his plans on taking the job with the miller. They expect the worst, but Garrow turns that expectation on its head. He lets them know that he's expected to leave in 2 weeks. Eragon feels kind of bummed and left out in all this. He continues to confide in Saphira, and she's growing so big now, so large in fact, that Eragon can now sit comfortably in a hollow space in her back near her neck. In turn, as Eragon teaches her new phrases and words, Saphira teaches him how a dragon typically thinks and behaves. Their relationship continues to grow, and the more time they spend together. Eragon finally decides to tell Roran about Saphira, the day he's leaving for his new job. When he reaches his room, though, Roran is packing a stone that was gifted to him by Eragon. However, something stops Roran from packing it up, and he puts it back on his shelf. Eragon now is incredibly unhappy about the change happening in his life and decides actually now against telling Rowan about Saphira. So Rowan is sending off to the village the next morning. Garrow gives Rowan a parting gift, money that he has been saving for Rowan for such a day as that. He also gives Rowan and Eragon parting words. Basically summarizing here, be respectful, honest, but independent as they grow into adults. It's words anybody can live by. Eragon leaves with Rowan to the village, and they meet Dempston, the owner of the mill at Horst's Smillery. Horst pulls Eragon aside to tell him that these hooded figures are coming into Carvajal, asking about Eragon's blue stone. Horst promises Eragon that no one has said anything yet, but he's worried about Sloane. Once again, the jerk of a butcher that doesn't like Eragon at all will say something to these ominous strangers. Horst offers some advice, ditch the stone, but it's a bit too late since the stone burst into several pieces, becoming a beautiful blue dragon now called Saphira. Of course, Eragon doesn't tell Horst this at all, but instead says his goodbye to Roran and heads home. Or so he wants people to think. Eragon ends up doubling back, sneaks over to Sloane's butchery shop, only to see him talking to those strangers that he was warned about already. The strangers seem to thank Sloane and head outside. Eragon attempts to get a better look at these people, only for them to spot him. Like, literally frozen by fear, he finds himself powerless as they approach him. Brom saves the day, and the strangers literally hiss at the interruption from Brom and walk away. Brom asks Eragon why he looks so sick, and Eragon shrugs the question away, but Brom continues to stonewall Eragon, drilling him about the non-existent traitor that knew so much about the Dragon Riders and their dragons. But once again, Eragon avoids the questions. Attempting to make his getaway, Eragon drops his gloves. Brom picks them up for him. As he hands them back to Eragon, Brom literally grabs his wrist to reveal the silver mark on his palm. Frightened, Eragon jerks away from Brom and tries to hurry away while Brom literally just whistles like nothing happens. So as Eragon is getting home, he mentally connects with Saphira to let them know what's going on. Unfortunately, she does not take it well at all. And I don't mean at all. She does not like what's happening. She freaks out. massively. And in attempts to calm her, Eragon climbs onto her back, which seemed like a decent idea at the time. And in my thing, I would have been like, no. However, Saphira literally launches herself into the air with Eragon clinging to her back. She gains some major altitude and gets so high, in fact, that frost starts accumulating on Eragon. Eragon's desperate at this point, doing anything to get Saphira's attention, but she's not having anything. She's not hearing anything. She's not feeling anything. She just goes. She's running. Saphira has effectively shut Eragon out of her mind completely. Instead, Eragon is resigned to holding on for dear life and attempting to not throw up while she's flying. Saphira doesn't stop until nightfall and lands in a small clearing somewhere in the mountains. Eragon's in rough shape from the unexpected flight. He's frozen, his muscles are cramped, and that's not even the worst of it. The skin from the inside of his thighs has been stripped away because of Saphira's scales. And flying was supposed to be fun. Unfortunately, Saphira is still freaking out because of the murderers, she calls them, and absolutely refuses to take Eragon back home. This worries Eragon because Garrow is still at home, and he's worried that these strangers might get to Garrow before they can. But he has no choice. Saphira is adamant about remaining where they are. She won't fly. So she's literally put her foot down. And I don't think you can fight with a dragon. Saphira distrusts about the events, curls up with Eragon and allowing the warmth from her to warm Eragon up. She even sweetly covers him with her wing and creates a small blue tent for him, and they end up sleeping out where they landed in the forests. So we are currently at the tail end of chapter 10 of Eragon. I know we are leaving off of a cliffhanger, but that's like 7 chapters further than what we got off previously, so that's a lot to go on right now. The dragon now has a name, Saphira. She grows at an exponential rate. Here are the most unnerving questions that I have as a reader. Who are these strangers asking questions about the stone? And how much do they really know? And from the hiss, are they even human or something else entirely? Brahm also knows so much more than what he's letting on, and his nonchalant attitude towards the silver marking on Eragon's palm seems troubling. And is Eragon safe? Especially because Saphira took off so unexpectedly, and Eragon literally had no time to warn him. So that's where we're leaving off for now. There will be a part 3. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this part, enjoying the series. What do you think of Eragon so far? Obviously, if you've read further than chapter 10, please no spoilers. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!